do this. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sabbath to those coming in. I'm getting ready to walk the dogs, as you can see. And good morning. Happy Sabbath. I have another thought for today that was brought to my mind. And hi, Vanita. Good to see you. And my thought for today is unforgiveness. There is just not enough forgiveness in this world. Because people go through life. Hi, good to see you. People go through life not willing to forgive others. Oh, they'll ask for forgiveness, but they're not willing to forgive other. Oh, does it? Oh, thank you. Yes, it's something that we all need to do. We all need to be willing to forgive. And then we have to ask for forgiveness as well. It's a two-way street. Whether somebody's done you wrong or not, we may feel that somebody's done us a terrible wrong. We have to be willing to forgive that person, And if we've done something wrong to somebody, we should be willing to forgive them. I know I've been in that position where I said something to my daughter-in-law that kind of cut to her quick. And after she called me down on it, I realized that I had said something that I shouldn't have said. It's the way I said it. And I apologized immediately, and it made me feel so much better because she forgave me for it. I mean, we could go through life feeling sorry for ourselves, but that doesn't solve anything. We have to be willing to give of ourselves each and every day. And if we see somebody that we need to forgive, or that has harmed us in any way, we need to ask them to forgive. We need to ask them to forgive us. We need to be willing to forgive them as well. Like I said, it's a two-way street. Don't be afraid to ask somebody for forgiveness. I know that Erlene's not in here now, but she's got a problem with her sister. Her sister doesn't really care for her anymore because she's a Seventh-day Adventist. And she needs to just forgive her sister for the way she feels towards her, even though it's hard because she is family. And just ask the Lord to help her. Maybe if she forgives her sister for the way she's acting, her sister will come back and change her mind. You never know. We never know what was in people's minds, But like I said, there's just not enough forgiveness in this world. People go through life hurting people, but they don't ask anybody to help them to forgive. They don't know how to forgive. Like I said yesterday, they'll start lashing out at you, but they're not willing to do their part to forgive you. They expect you to forgive them, though. That's the sad part of it. They expect you to forgive them, but they're not going to forgive you. That's not really right. Let me go ahead and ask for a share on this. I forgot all about that because I need to get this out. People need to learn the art of forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that is expected of us because we do not want to die miserable people because we weren't willing to forgive others. It's a burden on us that we should not have to bear. I never want to bear that burden where I'm supposed to forgive somebody and never did. Whether somebody forgives me or not, it's immaterial, although I'm glad they do. But I know if I've hurt somebody, I want to be able to ask them for forgiveness. And if I've hurt somebody, I want to ask them to forgive me. You're not always going to find the person's going to accept your forgiveness. That's a given. But at least if you do your part and ask for forgiveness, you never know what will happen. It could lead to something fantastic. We really don't know. Forgiveness is something that is it's hard for a lot of people to say, I'm sorry. Those are just two words, I'm sorry. They're afraid to say it. They're afraid they're going to be ridiculed because they said, I'm sorry. Should never be afraid to say you're sorry for anything, no matter what it might be. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have problems too, but I am willing to say I'm sorry if need be. I'm willing to ask somebody, please forgive me for what I said or what I did to you. That was not my intention, because I'm the type of person that I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And I don't want to do anything to harm them in any way. So if I feel that I've misspoke or I've done something that's made them feel bad, that I will come back and I will say, I'm very, very sorry. Please forgive me. We have to be able to do that. We can't go through life holding grudges. That's the problem. A lot of people go through life holding grudges, not willing to forgive other people. You can't do that. Where's it going to get you? It's going to get you nowhere. You're going to die a miserable person because you held a grudge, because you're not willing to forgive that person for what they did, whether they, you harmed them physically or whatever. They're just not willing to forgive you for it. It's sad. I'm not one of these kind to go through life and be a miserable, because you know something? Life is too short to be miserable. We got to live life to the fullest, no matter what that might be. We have to be willing to do our part to forgive others and be there for them if they need us. And hopefully they'll forgive us too. Sometimes that's not easy to do. Is you forgive somebody, but they're not always going to forgive you. It's a given, but I'm always happy when I can do my part and forgive other people, whether they forgive me or not, because I know that is something that is expected of all of us, is to forgive one another as Christ has forgiven us. As we know, that's what the Bible says. He's forgiven us. We need to do the same thing. We're to forgive 70 times 7. We're to give even our enemies. We're to forgive our enemies, and that's not an easy thing to do, because your enemies are the ones, the worst of all, that you don't really want to have anything to do with, but yet they're people too, and they're not necessarily due for forgiveness, but you need to forgive them anyway. I mean, people do things wrong all the time. What really impresses me is when you have somebody that takes a life, and the family members will come back and they will forgive that person for killing their loved one. That is total forgiveness, because I don't know if I could do something like that, if I could forgive somebody for killing a family member. But you have to go on. You have to do it anyway. That's got to be very, very difficult. I've heard it many times that people will say, well, I forgive you for what you've done to my family. It's not an easy thing, and it's not an easy thing to do. And yet there's others that won't forgive others for hurting their family members. They will not forgive them because they feel that it was terrible. Murder, it doesn't matter who it is wrong. And if they can't forgive them, then they're no better than the person that committed the murder. I have never been in that situation. Thank the Lord I haven't. I hope I never am. But I wouldn't want to be put in that situation where I would have to to forgive them for what they did in spite of it. That is true forgiveness. Not holding grudges, knowing full well their family member's not coming back, but they're not holding grudges. They're willing to forgive that person. Forgive and forget is what they say. That's hard to do, because a lot of people will forgive, but they won't forget what happened. You can't do that. You got to forgive and forget. You got to forgive and then let go and let God. We all need to do that, and I'm including myself in that too. So let's all remember that forgiveness is a two-way street. If you hurt somebody, be sure to ask for forgiveness. And if they hurt you, I hope and pray that they forgive you too. Everybody's has to deal with forgiveness at one time or another. Or you do stupid things, dumb things, and I've known that. I've done that too. Done dumb things already, and it's come back to kind of bite me, and I didn't realize until afterwards. And I said, well, that was kind of stupid, Why'd I do that? I often ask myself, after I say and do things I shouldn't do, then I'll ask why'd I do that? What made me do what I did? You just have to be willing to forgive people anyway. They are God's people too. We're all God's people. And we have to be willing to give of ourselves. Forgive those that have hurt us, whichever way that might be. And people do hurt people all the time. They hurt them constantly by their words, by their deeds, anything that they've done. You know what they say, the tongue is the most lying, the most murderous part of our body. The Bible talks about that, a lying tongue. So you got to be careful with your words, what you say to somebody, because when you think about it, you cannot take it back. You can't say, "Oh, I need it. I didn't mean it that. I'm going to take that back," because once it's out there, that's it. It's done. You cannot take it back. All you can do is go forward from that point on, and say, "Well, I'm sorry. I'll try to do better next time, and I won't say what I said." I know I've come to that problem sometimes too, where I think I said the right thing, but I didn't. I said the wrong thing, and then I had to ask for forgiveness. It's not an easy thing to do, to ask for forgiveness, because you don't know how people are going to react. Because some people don't want to forgive you for nothing. They're mean and vindictive, and they don't care about forgiveness. They don't want to be hurt, but they'll turn around and hurt you. They'll turn around and hurt you really bad, and that's the sad thing of it. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want anybody hurting me. I don't want anybody to say that I'm not worth forgiving. We should never feel that no one is worth forgiving. I mean, if these family members can forgive a murderer that murdered their family, then who are we to say that we can't forgive somebody else? I'm hoping that nobody ever has to forgive anybody for killing their family, but it does happen. And not everybody's going to be willing. Good morning to those coming in. Welcome. Happy Sabbath. There's a lot of them that are not willing to forgive for murdering their family. I can understand that, because it was a terrible, terrible thing, and they just can't get over the fact that family member is gone. There's a family in Denver that are mourning. That are mourning. Oh, happy Sabbath. Good morning to you. There is a father and mother in Denver that are grieving the loss of their daughter and their two granddaughters and the baby Nico, because their daughter's husband murdered all of them. And this just happened in August of this year, August 13th. He murdered all of them and buried their bodies. Well, threw the daughters in some oil tanks out in the job that he worked at, and put his wife in their grave. And he desecrated their bodies so bad, and yet, the family can't forgive him for that. I can understand that. They're going to feel better if they do forgive him, but they call him a monster. They're not willing to talk to him. Now, his parents, of course, they don't feel that he did anything wrong. They said that he, if he didn't do it, then why did he plead guilty to it? He did plead guilty to it because they told him if you plead guilty, you won't get the death penalty, which they don't get there in Colorado anyway. I guess there's somebody on death row, been on there for 20-some years and has never got the death penalty. He's still sitting on death row and hasn't been executed yet. So he got life imprisonment, but he didn't want to admit at first that he killed the family. He said he killed her because she killed the girls, but so he didn't know what to do. So he just takes them out and out to the oil fields where he worked and disposed of their bodies. The family is going to have to learn how to forgive him eventually. They're going to have to come along and say, "Well, we forgive you, Chris, for what you did to our family. We don't have our daughter anymore. We don't have our grandchildren, but we forgive you for it." That's going to be very hard to do, under the circumstances. And I know it would be hard for me too. I couldn't do it very easily. I couldn't forgive it that easily either, but yet you have to. You can't go through life hating on someone, no matter what that situation might be. Even the worst murderers in the world deserve forgiveness. And it's totally up to God what happens to them in the end. We don't have to worry about that. Just should be willing to forgive them and let it go And let God take care of it, because he's the one that has full control of everything. He will take care of that person. He will take care of all of us. We just have to be willing to do our part to forgive those that need forgiving. Yes, they do deserve forgiveness. See, like I said, even the worst murderer. And you know, that is hard when I've seen families they'll forgive somebody for killing their family members. That they said, well, it wasn't right what you did, but we forgive you for it. It's true. They hold no grudges. That would be hard for me not to hold a grudge for somebody that killing my family like that. But, you have to be willing to do it. You can't, being unforgiving is not going to bring the family members back. That's the crux of the whole matter. That woman and her two little girls and her 15-week-old baby, well, she was pregnant. She was 15 weeks pregnant with a little boy. It's not going to bring them back, for sure. Exactly. Prayer. You're right. It does seem easier said than done. You're right. I don't think I could do it, but like you said, with God, with prayer, anything is possible. We just have to be willing to do what we need to do to forgive somebody that has wronged us. But like I said, the murderers, to me, in some aspects, I think to myself, well, do they really deserve to be forgiven for what they have done? Because they're total monsters. But yet, God says you forgive them anyway. You can't just go through life not forgiving. Because now this family that has not forgiven him and are very upset, especially the father and the mother of the woman, they are very distraught, and that's understandable. They're distraught, and they consider him a monster, and they don't know how they're going to cope. They've had a hard time coping since this all happened in August, because they're without their daughter now. The holidays coming up, they're without their daughter, they're without their granddaughters, and those little girls, believe it or not, were only 4 years old and 3 years old. The oldest one, the 4-year-old, as I understand it, she fought for her life when he was killing her. The 3-year-old didn't, so it makes me wonder, maybe he smothered them. He strangled his wife, but he smothered the little girls. But she fought for her life because they found some contusions on her. So she did fight for her life. And you imagine what was going through her mind, fighting for her life, wondering why her daddy is trying to kill her, why he's doing this to her. I could imagine what she thought, and it's so very, very sad to feel that he had to dispose of his family because he didn't like the situation he was in. He felt his marriage was falling apart, and he didn't want to be with his family anymore. He had a mistress. Yes, it is. He had a mistress where he worked. It was the boss's daughter. He was going with her, and he wanted to be with her. So he thought the only way he could be with her is to get rid of his family. Well, he didn't have to do that. If he didn't want to be with his family, he could have divorced her. He could have divorced her and left. He didn't have to kill him. That is the worst thing you can ever do, is destroy another family like that by taking their loved ones from them. Because they're not here to do anything anymore. They can't enjoy life. So young, in her 30s, and her children so little. And like I said, the baby was she was only pregnant with a little boy, 15 weeks pregnant. Of course, when she was killed, he got extracted, and it's just so sad that they had to bury them so young like that, And the mourners were just, because I had seen it on YouTube, and I had seen the mourners and the ones that were carrying the casket, they just were in tears. They just could not believe that this family of a mother and her 2 little girls and her infant son were slaughtered like they were. But we know that this is going to continue to happen. As long as there's sin in the world, people are going to continue to kill other people. It's sad, but that's the way life is, because we know the first murder ever was Cain killed Abel, and murders have been happening ever since. And every day you'll find somebody that's been shot and killed by a disgruntled boyfriend or whatever the case may be. It's really sad. But if you find yourself in a position where somebody has harmed you in some way, maybe in some instances when you have been hurt, maybe the person that hurts you is not aware of they hurt you. You need to tell them, well, you know you hurt me by saying such and such or doing such and such. If you don't tell them what they've done, they're not going to know it. That you got to give them a chance to say, well, I'm sorry. If my daughter-in-law had not called me down on what I said, I would have not known that I said it in a way that it hurt her. And I realized afterwards, and I says, oh, I'm bad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it that way. I shouldn't even said it at all. And she said, well, I forgive you, but she said, you got to understand, if you say it that way to somebody else, a total stranger, how they are going to take it. And she's right. It would have been totally different if it had been a total stranger. They probably would have decked me or something. But we just have to be willing to do our part and forgive those that may seem unforgivable in our estimation, but they're still worthy of our forgiveness anyway. We all need forgiveness. We need forgiveness, and we need to forgive. We can't be afraid to ask for forgiveness whenever possible. It doesn't matter what the situation might be. Life may seem hopeless, but still you got to ask for forgiveness anyway, because it's not. Life is too short to hold a grudge. Be willing to do your part and go up to somebody and said, did I harm you? Did I hurt you in some way? What did I say to you? Because they may walk away from you, and they may not want anything to do with you. And then it kind of makes you wonder, well, what did I say and do to them? So you have to ask somebody, well, did I hurt you? Did I say something in a way that you're upset by? And if they tell you yes, then find out what it is and say, well, I'm very, very sorry. I did not mean to hurt you. And I'm one of these kind that if I feel I've hurt somebody, it upsets me, because I'm not one of these kind to hurt anybody. I don't like to hurt people. I'm one of these kind that I want to be a kind, gentle soul, and I don't want to say or do anything to hurt anybody, but it does happen. We have to be willing to forgive those that are not so forgivable, whether we like it or not, because we're all under in God's hands, and we take our lives and make our lives would be much better if we can forgive others. Well, I'm going to call this Periscope a quits now, as I think everybody's left. But you all have a happy Sabbath. Take care. God bless. And until we meet again, bye-bye.